Okay, so now let's begin section 2. And section 2 is involved with interview and physical examination secrets, and we have 10 different secrets for you here, each of which is a brilliant procedure. And this really comprises the bulk of this program. So I hope you get a lot of useful, immediately useful procedures that you can use right away on your very next report in this section. Secret number 1 is to use symptoms questionnaires and do the activities of daily living interview in the face-to-face evaluation. Use symptom questionnaires and do the activities of daily living interview in the face-to-face evaluation. So provide the symptom questionnaires during the face-to-face evaluation. Don't just give it to the injured worker in the mail, as an example, or in the waiting room to complete prior to their meeting with you. Do them actually in the face-to-face evaluation because of many reasons, and we'll get into those as we go along here. In your handouts or in the written materials that accompany this course, you're going to find a list of most of the symptom questionnaires that you'll ever use, most of which are directly from the AMA guides. So if you refer to your handout materials, I've provided you a list of those symptom questionnaires, and they include the pain drawing diagram, the cat's hand diagram, the pain-related impairment questionnaire, the neck disability index, the headache disability index, the dizziness handicap inventory, revised Oswestry low back questionnaire, the lower extremity functional scale, the Epworth sleepiness scale, the disabilities of the arm, shoulder, and hand questionnaire, also known as the DASH, the shoulder pain and disability index questionnaire, the Beck depression inventory, the Beck anxiety scale, the Hamilton rating scale for anxiety, the Zung self-rating depression scale, the profile of mood states, the Roland Morris low back pain and disability questionnaire, the Zung self-rating depression questionnaire, the McGill pain questionnaire, the Hamilton self-rating scale for depression, and several others. And I've provided that list for you in your handout materials, and I've indicated in that list which of the symptom questionnaires are described in the AMA guides. Not all of them are, but many of them are. And those are described in the AMA guides in pages 578 through 579. So you're going to want to use those, specifically the ones that are mentioned in the AMA guides. That enhances the credibility and persuasion of your report if you're ever called on or questioned on your symptom questionnaires, and I have. And we may or may not touch upon that example when we get to the deposition portion of this program, but I've been questioned on my symptom questionnaires as if it was actually me that filled out the symptom questionnaires, and I've had my symptom questionnaires attacked, and I simply responded by saying, hey, they're described in the AMA guides. We're required to use them according to the AMA guides, and so that pretty much satisfies all parties as to the efficacy and the acceptability of these symptom questionnaires. So I give those to you in your handout of written materials for this course, and most of those you can access online simply by entering the name of the questionnaire in the Google bar. You're generally able to find those in a PDF file somewhere throughout the internet if you just search Google for the named questionnaire. So those are symptom questionnaires. With regards to the activities of daily living interview, this is best done in the face-to-face interview, because this allows you to assess the consistency of whatever reported limitations your injured worker is reporting, whatever limitations they're reporting with activities of daily living, it allows you to compare those reported limitations to the known medical condition. Or in some cases, it's the presumed medical condition. And so, for that reason, it's best done in the face-to-face interview. And I know there are many doctors that don't do it this way. They simply give their injured workers some form of an activities of daily living questionnaire. And I've even seen examples where the questionnaire is not out of the AMA guides. In other words, it doesn't include the activities of daily living as those are described in the AMA guides, which is, I believe, on page 4 or page 5 of the AMA guides. These doctors use some sort of listing of activities of daily living obtained somewhere else. And in my opinion, if information is available in the AMA guides, we should use that first. And so what the very best doctors do, and I've found this with several doctors, is they do an activities of daily living interview in the face-to-face meeting, and they simply go down the list of activities of daily living as those activities of daily living are described in the AMA guides, and they record by hand, or generally on computer, into their word processor. They record the injured worker's responses to each of the specific activities of daily living. So, for example, the AMA guides go through several different types of activities of daily living. And there's like 8 major categories of activities of daily living. There is self-care and personal hygiene activities. There are communication activities. There are physical activities. There are sensory function activities. There are non-specialized hand activities. There's travel activities. There's sexual function activities. And there are sleep activities. So, for example, and these are all described in the AMA guides on page 4. So, for example, with self-care and personal hygiene activities, there are 8 separate possible sub-activities described in this major heading of self-care and personal hygiene. And these are all described in the AMA guides. So this would include activities such as urinating, defecating, brushing teeth, combing hair, bathing, dressing oneself, eating, and then other. And what other is, other gives you an opportunity to ask the injured worker, Mrs. Jones, is there any other way that because of your lower back and right leg pain, you are limited in self-care and personal hygiene? Is there any other activities where you're having limitations? And that gives them an opportunity to explain to you all possible limitations in the category of self-care and personal hygiene. With regards to communication activities, there are activities including writing, typing, seeing, hearing, speaking, and other. And nowadays, communication involves so many different types of activities, much more than it once did. For example, nowadays we use a lot of text messaging. We use a lot of emailing. And so those 2 functions might fall under the other category. So we have writing, typing, seeing, hearing, speaking, and other. And you wouldn't typically expect to see a person having limitations with hearing and or speaking and or seeing with a standard type of injury that we see at work, such as a back injury, a shoulder injury, a psychiatric injury. However, with a hand injury, they could have problems with sending text messages or using the keyboard for sending emails, and so certainly those limitations would qualify under this general heading of communication activities. With regards to physical activities, this is likely the area where we're going to have the most reported limitations. And the AMA guides describe physical activities including standing, sitting, reclining, walking, climbing stairs, and other. Now, I myself personally have not had too many people report problems with reclining, and I'm not sure what would actually cause limitations in reclining, except perhaps if the person had dizziness, for example. But I guess it's conceivable that a back injury or a neck injury could cause limitations with reclining, although I myself haven't run into that very much. However, it's common to find reported limitations with standing and sitting and walking and climbing stairs, and other category allows you to ask the injured worker if there's any other area or any other physical activities that they are limited in as a result of their reported problem. With regards to walking, this is where your gait disturbance information starts to accumulate. With walking, if the injured worker indicates some difficulty with walking, you're going to want to explore that a little bit further. And I go into this in great detail in the 3-hour program on gait disturbance and assistive devices. Reported limitations with walking could include any number of things, including requiring an assistive device, requiring the use of an ankle-foot orthosis, difficulty with deep chairs, difficulty with grades, elevations, or inclines, and many other things, both out of Chapter 13 and Chapter 17, related to gait disturbance. So for more information about that, I recommend the program on gait disturbance. In regards to sensory functions, sensory functions include seeing, hearing, tactile feeling, tasting, smelling, and other. And I rarely have many reported limitations here with sensory function. However, occasionally I explore the tactile feeling activity, especially as relates to an upper extremity or a hand injury, or possibly even a cervical spine injury that involves some radiculopathy into the hand. That could affect tactile feeling and could involve some limitations in tactile feeling. With regards to non-specialized hand activities, the AMA guides describe activities including grasping, lifting, tactile discrimination, and other. And these are typically activities that we associate with the hand. Tactile discrimination was described above just a second ago under sensory functions. And interestingly, this is the only area where the AMA guides associates limitations with lifting, and here it's associated with problems with the hands. Well, by analogy, and in my opinion, as it's described here in the AMA guides, problems with lifting are ascribed to problems with the hands, but also a person could have limitations with lifting due to the lower back, for example, or due to problems with the shoulder. So you might want to consider discussing lifting under the other section in the physical activities section. Okay, so this section involves grasping, lifting, tactile discrimination, and other. Other gives the injured worker a chance to elaborate on other limitations that they might have, in this case with their hands. Travel activities involve riding, driving, flying, and or other. I rarely have injured workers describe problems with flying. Many simply have not had an opportunity to fly since their injury, and so therefore they don't know if they would be able to fly or not. Other injured workers that have had the opportunity to fly have found that when they want to go on a trip or they want to travel somewhere and they want to fly, they usually find ways to do it. They might describe limitations in flying. In other words, maybe they have to get up out of their chair frequently, or they have to walk the aisle, or whatever, but in most cases they were able to successfully complete a trip by plane. Sexual functions or sexual activities are divided into activities that are divided into male activities and female activities. The male activities involve ejaculation, erection, and orgasm, and female activities include lubrication and orgasm. And then the other category generally involves or generally devolves, I should say, into discussions of pain with various sexual positions. So, for example, injured worker may say that they're having problem with sexual activities, and this is common. So the line of questioning would involve discussion, number one, of male function, proper male sexual function, which is ejaculation and erection. So you would ask the injured worker, okay, well, do you have normal male function? In other words, do you have normal erection? Do you have normal ejaculation? Many times they'll say, well, yes, I do. I have normal male function. You say, okay, so you have pain. What you're saying is you have pain with various positions. And they'll say, yes, I do. I have pain. It's not that I have altered male function. It's that I have pain with positions. And so sexual frequency might be down. And that would involve women as well. Finally, the AMA guides discuss sleep activities, and that involves questioning the injured worker as to whether or not they have any limitations with restful nocturnal sleep, whether or not they have daytime sleepiness, whether or not they toss and turn frequently due to pain, whether or not they have to get up at night and take medication because of pain. And many times I will ask an injured worker whether or not they feel that they're losing sleep. And many of them will tell me that indeed, yes, they are losing sleep. They think that they're losing sleep because they toss and turn all night, or they have pain, or they have to get up and they wake up tired, and they believe that they're losing sleep. And so I will then ask them, well, do you take a nap during the day? And very few injured workers will indicate that they do take a nap during the day. They'll say things like, well, I'm way too busy to take a nap during the day. And that line of questioning can give you an idea as to how much sleep they're actually using. And it sort of highlights the value of doing the activities of daily living interview in the face-to-face evaluation, because even though on their questionnaires, symptom questionnaires, they may indicate that they're sleeping terribly and they're losing sleep and they're having all kinds of trouble with sleep activities, in face-to-face interview it allows you to ask them more detail about those reported limitations, such as the question that I just mentioned. Are you taking a nap during the day in order to catch up on this sleep that you're losing at night? And if they indicate yes, I do. I take a nap between 2 and 3, 3 to 4 days a week to catch up. That would tend to corroborate their description of their reported limitations. If they indicate, no, it's not that bad. I'm not that tired, and during the day I'm too busy to take a nap, or I never nap because then I certainly wouldn't sleep at all at night. Then that gives you an indication that perhaps they're not losing as much sleep as it feels to them like they are. So that just further highlights the value of doing the interview in the face-to-face evaluation. And again, it allows you to compare the results of symptom questionnaires, which is an activity that an injured worker simply circles numbers or checks off boxes on questionnaires without the added responsibility or the added burden of answering questions about their responses. Whereas in the face-to-face interview, you can seek more detail and request more clarifications and really get an accurate image or an accurate picture of really the extent of what the limitation is. Now, the activities of daily living assessment requires us as qualified medical evaluators to translate the reported impact of the injury, condition, or pain as it's described by the examinee on the ability to complete activities of daily living into language that can be used to determine the presence or absence of permanent impairment as a result of the injury, as a result of the condition, or as a result of the pain. And one way to do this is to take the examinee on a journey through the activities of daily living categories, while you as the evaluator mentally assign a rating of minimal, slight, moderate, or severe to the description given by the examinee. So let's consider the example of this assessment as it relates to self-care and personal hygiene in the case of a person with reported lower back and right leg pain. For example, a lumbar sprain strain injury with reported radiculopathy. So how would the activities of daily living assessment, at least as relates to self-care and personal hygiene, go? Well, this is a following example of a hypothetical case and some sample dialogue. And this is an exercise for you doctors to mentally assign, silently assign in your own mind the rating of pain to this description as it's given by the injured worker. And remember, our categories are minimal, slight, moderate, and severe. Okay, so this is an example of sample dialogue. And this is the doctor speaking now. Doctor says, Mr. Smith, I'm going to ask you some questions about how your lower back and right leg pain affect your ability to do various activities. Now, these activities are termed activities of daily living. And these are activities that you would do on a daily basis as you go about your day. The first of these categories is self-care and personal hygiene. I'm going to ask you some questions about self-care and personal hygiene. Now, Mr. Smith, do you have any problems with being able to manage your own self-care and personal hygiene? Mr. Smith: oh yes, I have trouble doing most everything. With my pain, I can barely function. Doctor: okay.
I'm going to give you a list of various self-care and personal hygiene activities, and I want you to tell me if or how your lower back and right leg pain interferes with your ability to care for yourself, okay? Okay, considering urination. Mr. Smith, do you have any problem using the bathroom for urination? Mr. Smith, no, I can urinate fine. Doctor, Mr. Smith, do you have any problem using the bathroom for defecating? Mr. Smith, no, I can defecate fine. Sometimes, though, because of my pain, I have trouble wiping myself because of the twisting. Doctor, I understand. Do you wipe yourself, or do you have to get help with this? Mr. Smith, oh yeah, I wipe myself. Doctor, Mr. Smith, do you have any problem with brushing your teeth, combing your hair, or bathing? Mr. Smith, yes, it hurts my lower back and my right leg to bend over the sink to brush my teeth. And when I shower, it hurts to bend over to wash my feet. Doctor, I understand. Can you brush your teeth by yourself? Oh yeah. If my back is hurting, I just do it standing up instead of bending over. Can you wash your feet? Oh yeah. I just put one foot up on the ledge and bend over to do it that way. Doctor, got it. Doctor, Mr. Smith, do you have any problem dressing yourself? Mr. Smith, yes. I have a lot of lower back and right leg pain with putting on my pants and my shoes and socks. Doctor, did you dress yourself in coming here to this evaluation? Yes. Doctor, Mr. Smith, because of pain in your lower back and right leg, do you have any problem with eating? Mr. Smith, well, kind of. I have pain with sitting down to eat a meal. Doctor, are you missing meals? Have you lost weight? Mr. Smith, no. I guess I'm not missing any meals. Doctor, uh-huh. Doctor, Mr. Smith, can you think of any other examples of how your lower back and right leg pain interferes with your ability to handle your own self-care and personal hygiene? Mr. Smith, no, that's about it. Now, this would be an example of minimal pain because the pain in the lower back and right leg, however constant, however severe, and however impairing it's felt to be by the examinee, it does not really interfere with the ability to perform the activities. In this case, we're talking about self-care activities. Now, this is a valuable insight, and I repeat this procedure with each of the activities of daily living categories right down through the list. With communication, does the pain interfere with the ability to write? Does it interfere with your ability to type? Does it interfere with your ability to see? Does it interfere with your ability to hear? Does the pain interfere with your ability to speak? Does the pain interfere with any other communication activities or in any other way with your ability to? Does the pain interfere with physical activity functions? Does it interfere with the ability to stand? Does it interfere with the ability to sit? Does it interfere with the ability to recline? Does it interfere with the ability to walk? Does it interfere with the ability to climb stairs? Now, in the case of lower back with right leg radiculopathy, you could expect that your examinee would give you some descriptions of pain with standing, with sitting, with reclining, with walking, with climbing stairs, etc., with other physical activities. The question becomes, does the pain interfere with the ability to perform the activity? Can you stand? Can you sit? How long can you walk? How many stairs can you recline? You want to get a sense of how the pain interferes with the ability to perform the activities of daily living, while in your mind you assign a category of minimal, moderate, or severe. Similarly, with sensory functions, does the pain interfere with your ability to hear, to see, to feel, to taste, to smell? Does the pain interfere with your non-specialized hand activities of grasping, of lifting, of tactile discrimination? Does the pain interfere with your ability to travel, to ride as a passenger, to drive a car, to fly as a passenger in an airplane? Does the pain in any way interfere with other travel activities? Does the pain interfere with sexual function, Mr. Smith? Now, in the case of men, sexual function, normal male sexual function includes ejaculation and erection. Does the pain in any way interfere with normal male function of erection and ejaculation? For women, normal female sexual function is lubrication and orgasm. Does the pain in any way interfere with those activities? Other activities that your examinee may report is that they may report that they have pain with various positions of sex. The question then becomes, okay, are you able to have sex? Does the pain interfere with your ability to have sex? Many times in your workers will say, well, no, I just have to be careful, or I just have to modify positions. And so that would be an example of minimal impact of the condition on the ability to perform activities of daily living. Does the pain interfere with your sleep? Are you able to get restful sleep? Do you have a normal sleep pattern? Do you have daytime sleepiness? Now, this procedure helps immeasurably to assist in translating the examinee's descriptions of pain into something that we, as qualified medical evaluators, can work with. And I recommend that this assessment of activities of daily living be done with each examinee. And I recommend that it be done in the face-to-face interview rather than by means of a pre-completed form that's simply filled out by the examinee in either a checkbox or fill in the blank format. Because you're after evidence of how the reported symptoms, in this example was symptoms with the lower back and the right leg, we're after evidence of how the symptoms actually impact or impair the activity. And the AMA Guide's 5th edition defines impairment as, quote, a loss or loss of use or derangement of any body part, any organ system, or organ function. And this is found on page 2 of the guides. And also it defines impairment by stating that, quote, an impairment may lead to functional limitations or the inability to perform activities of daily living. And in the example above, the lower back and right leg pain, they don't really or only minimally do they impair the daily living activities of self-care and personal hygiene. So this discussion and this description is given to you to be a practical tool that you can use to translate what it is that your injured worker is telling you into language that you can then use as the qualified medical evaluator in coming up with the conclusions, particularly as relates to permanent impairment. And I hope this has been a valuable exercise for you.
then at the conclusion of the activities of daily living interview, what you want to do is you want to assess the reported impact of the injury, condition, or pain as it's described by the examinee on the ability to complete activities of daily living for consistency. You want to assess it. Assess their description of the impact of their injury on their activities of daily living. You want to assess that for consistency with, number one, the mechanism of injury, with number two, your observations of the injured worker, and number three, of course, with your findings on physical exam. And you're going to want to revisit your findings here and refer back to this activities of daily living interview when you render your opinion on permanent impairment. And you want to make sure that the permanent impairment rating that you render is consistent and is supported by commensurate losses in activities of daily living. And if you're not able to substantiate significant limitations in activities of daily living, your permanent impairment rating must reflect that. So, in conclusion, there's a lot of value to be obtained by obtaining the activities of daily living interview as part of the face-to-face evaluation.